Hello, podcasters. This is your host, Eric Espinosa, and welcome to Brains Byte Back. In this episode, we're exploring the evolution of communication. And I'd like to start by asking, when is the last time you've picked up a phone, made a call to place an order, or even visited a doctor's office before you were asked to complete a virtual consultation first? These last 20 to 30 years, we've seen a technological revolution that's introduced us to so many new channels of communication, each impressing us just enough, but nothing in comparison to the oohs and ahs AI has evoked in these last couple of years. Nate MacLeitch, CEO of QuickBlox, joins our podcast for a second time to talk about how this revolutionizing technology is changing real-time communication like never before. Exploring how his team is leveraging AI to provide solutions related to staffing and efficiency in an industry he's served for quite some time, healthcare.
Hi, I'm Nate MacLeitch, CEO of QuickBlox, and we provide communication with AI integrated as a part of it.
Nate, thank you for joining us on this episode of Brains Byte Back. It's actually your second time on the show, and we're delighted to have you back. Let's begin by giving our listeners some insight on what QuickBlox is exactly.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me on the show again. I appreciate it. So QuickBlox is a communication platform provider, which provides real-time communication for apps and websites and companies. So what does that mean? We provide real-time chat, provide video calling and video conferencing, file sharing. And on top of our core platform, we have some embeddable apps for basically telemedicine and for AI assistants, widgets you can plug in the websites. And the kind of excitement that I have right now is that we've added a whole layer of generative AI capabilities within our real-time communication platform to enable AI assistants and co-pilots to help provide real-time summary, transcription, translation, and knowledge assistance to kind of any type of real-time communication application or website.
And you've been in the digital comm field for quite some time, so I'm sure you've kind of seen the progression in terms of communication tools, growing, right? Like we're seeing a lot of different types of options that are becoming available. Can you start from the beginning, giving us an idea of where the idea for QuickBlox initially came from?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think we've all seen how communication has evolved over the past, 20, 30 years, going from people dialing on phones and landlines to then moving towards, mobile phones and communication that way, to the adding of texting and SMS, to the rise of messaging apps like WhatsApp and others, to Slack for collaboration tools, and now the latest innovation in communication, which is really the enhancement of AI. So, and part of my journey is actually followed kind of the messaging, the change in communication technologies as well. Earlier in my career, I was involved with media and then got involved in the early days of the SMS industry, if you can believe that. It was a time when SMS was obviously not as commonplace and needed to be used in different applications.
How early are we talking about here?
SMS would have been about 2002, 2003 is when it started coming into like consumer applications. So you basically, all the texting kind of revolution. SMS was originally designed as an internal messaging layer that engineers could use to communicate to each other on cell phone networks, and then they made it publicly available so that users can kind of text one another. And then from SMS, obviously, with the rise of the iPhone and smartphones, you now had a plethora of apps and ability to communicate through the internet. So that was obviously the rise of messenger apps like WhatsApp and moving to communication forward. So in terms of my background, I was selling SMS gateways and working early days in those technologies, moved to running a variety of businesses doing kind of mobile content. Remember the old ringtone boom when people used to have ringtones and have chat services on their phone through SMS, and then moving to actually providing that as a service so that basically other companies and websites could kind of add this kind of functionality to their own apps and their websites. And then finally, with QuickBlox enabling those communication services, and now with the added layer of AI, because AI is now can be a participant within chats. It can do things like intake and triage of people asking questions. It can do things like customer care. And so I think the generative AI revolution really adds a whole new layer where it's actually transforming the way that we communicate between one another and between machines and human beings.
Are you seeing more of an uptick in terms of people reaching out to you interested in this because of AI? Or can you identify maybe a certain year or a certain time where you felt like more people were gravitating towards looking at your platform as a potential tool to connect with customers?
Yeah, so I mean, our platform and our communication tools predated kind of the launch of ChatGPT and other areas, and so we've always kind of had a consistent need for companies who want to add real-time communication to their apps. And specifically, we work with a number of different healthcare companies who want to enable like private, virtual consultation or video consultations. But with the addition of AI on top of this kind of capability, this functionality, it kind of becomes a bit of a game changer, right? Because AI now could be a participant of that conversation. So it can transcribe your conversation, it can summarize your conversation, it can take lots of different inputs of unstructured data, and unstructured data in the form of communication is like text messages, is like voice, is like video calls. So AI has a really great ability to take this unstructured data and kind of put it into the ability to analyze that and then provide relevant, helpful, useful information. And the other advantage about AI in terms of real-time communication is it can also serve as a knowledge assistant. So it can take this unstructured information, it can map that against a database, or can map those questions against some sort of knowledge source, and it can help provide answers to people who've got questions. And it could be as simple as, hey, what's the return policy of this item I bought online, where they can do that through some sort of chat interface, to providing detailed information about side effects for potential prescriptions that they might be taking, to helping define a workflow or find knowledge within an organization that might be in some Google Doc somewhere, so to provide useful information for the end user. So there's a ton of ways that AI can improve the communication process.
So it's a game changer for most industries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I think it's one of these things that whether or not you like it, you have to figure out how to adopt this technology into your business and your workflows. And I think that's both for the individual person at their job or the companies that are providing products. They all need to figure out how they can derive additional value in the use of AI into their services.
Recently, your company announced a chatbot feature that was built as a communication tool for the healthcare industry, which you kind of touched on. Can you talk to us a little bit more about you focusing on that niche in that sector?
Yes. So historically, we've had a number of customers use our messaging platform for a variety of different healthcare use cases. It could be something like peer support for cancer patients, where they're able to text each other and get support that way. We've had it used by a company who's doing care navigation and organ transplant management, so like chronic care management. And we've had it used for telemedicine use cases. And we've kind of got a ready telemedicine app that people can take and embed within their application. So based on our experience of seeing a variety of different use cases of healthcare and some of the problems they have in that industry, I mean, they've got issues of shortages of doctors and nurse. There's a high administrative burden where consultations need to be transcribed. They need to basically make sure you're getting the right information or the right prescription. So there's a lot of administrative overhead. We thought this was an industry that certainly could benefit from the use of AI in their workflows, and especially within the real-time communication. And so we created a HIPAA compliant AI assistant, which can be plugged into applications, bearing in mind the importance of protecting patient data, but also providing doctors, nurses, and the admin staff with the ability to have a knowledge assistant or the ability to kind of access AI functionalities in a safe way, that they can kind of generate information or they can streamline administration processes through the use of AI and applications. So what does this mean in like real practice rather than kind of the abstract? So like if you're coming to a website and you want to book an appointment and you want to talk about your symptoms, you can have the AI do some sort of light triage to be able to gather information about you as a patient, as well as understand what your problems are. And then they can give that as a summary to the doctor or nurse or admin staff so that they're better prepared to kind of treat you. It could also be something like when you're on a virtual consultation with a doctor, right? And either the doctor has to take notes or you have to take notes in the process. So if the AI can listen in the background and it can take a transcription of that call, and then that call can be formatted into the form of a note that the doctor would use. And it can also capture information you might say, like, hey, you've got, chest pain or you've got a hurt arm. Then it can actually also help provide diagnostic codes that the doctor can then refer to as part of the conversation. So there's a number of different areas where the use of AI within the real-time communication experience can actually create a lot of additional efficiencies. And that's an industry which obviously has got a lot of problems, right? I mean, there's a lot of areas in healthcare which can use some efficiency, and I think all parties in the healthcare delivery chain would be quite happy if they can have more efficiency in that process.
Before developing the tool, I imagine you were doing a little bit more research in the sector. Did you feel there was maybe a hesitation when it came to the healthcare industry in terms of the technologies that they were choosing to integrate? It's a type of industry that faces a lot of cyber attacks, ransomware, and those numbers seem to be going up. But it does have to be compliant with regards to the regulations of the government. What was the process of building a technology that was HIPAA compliant? Is that the way you pronounced it earlier? Was
Yeah,
that was
HIPAA, yeah.
okay
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
sure that it was compliant? Because from what I understand, it's one of the first AI chatbot tools that have that kind of certification.
Yeah, well, HIPAA isn't a certification, it's actually a law. And so with that, there's a number of laws that the HIPAA Act basically requires the protection of PHI, protected health information. And so that kind of governs, how a person's healthcare data should be treated. You make sure that data is stored in an encrypted format. You make sure that any connection between exchange of that data is done through encrypted connections. And then in the case of like AI, you also want to make sure that that data does not leave your organization and go train up some other AI model with any kind of personal information. And so we had experience of doing HIPAA compliant chat and communication through our messaging platform. So then when we wanted to add the additional AI capabilities, really important that, it still had best practice to protect personal data, but could also be used by the doctors who want to use it. And so we have SOC 2 compliance, which is part of the requirements there. Our data is encrypted at rest, encrypted in connection. And coming back to your original question about healthcare organizations using new tools and AI, yeah, I think there is some genuine concerns about how AI is going to impact the care delivery process. And I think those are good questions to ask, right? Because, first of all, a person's health data is one of the most precious data about that individual. And, they want to make sure that they have a right to privacy, and that information isn't going to be widely distributed, or if it is going to be distributed to someone else, that it's under their consent and it's done in a way that's appropriate. And then second, from the physician's point of view, they want to ensure that there's, accuracy and verifiability if they're going to be providing some information or getting a third party like AI to kind of analyze a patient's case and provide some recommendations. So we built a number of tools with our HIPAA compliant AI assistant where you still have a human in the loop. So the questions can be verifiable. The data that can be generated by the AI is traceable. So you can see where the source of that information is, and it can be, reviewed before it's shared or communicated. So we do have like plugable chatbots that can gather information and do, some customer care, but we have, some rules built in so that it needs to have a human handover, that message or that communication can be basically put in front of a human being for review before it gets modified and changed. So yeah, in terms of the healthcare industry, security is definitely paramount, and obviously protection of privacy and about their data is very, very, very important, as you said.
As a digital communication expert that has been in the field for a little while now, do you feel like the regulations are keeping up with the technology? Because AI right now seems to be really exploding and advancing very quickly. What do you think in
Yeah,
terms of, because I imagine you have to balance both. You have to keep an eye on what's going on with the updates with compliance, and at the same time, you're keeping an eye on the developments of the technology.
yeah. I mean, with us, that's kind of something that internally we're always looking to see how we continue to evolve our products in ways that take advantage of the latest changes in this technology while being mindful of practical use cases. There's still a lot that AI can do without having to take the latest bit of technology, right? There's still lots of efficiencies you can add in there, like summarization, or add in, some kind of form to triage or intake users, or provide knowledge against or provide answers against a knowledge base. So I think the current AI tools as they exist today can still add a lot of utility and value as this technology path continues to evolve and you add things into it. I do think that for a number of use cases, I mean, if you're not looking at regulated industries like healthcare, like we are, there are issues about consent and about how AI is interacting with you. I wrote an article a while back that was talking about that AI can add value, but if AI is taking your data as like a one-way trip and that's using that to manipulate, or is using that in ways that are ethically minded, that it can definitely create problems. So coming back to regulation, regulation, as we all know, typically is after the horse has bolted from the stable. So I think there is a lot of public policy that will need to address, a lot of these issues around making sure that as AI is implemented across, applications and services, that that there are some controls in place, and there are some ways that there's auditability and traceability of how that AI interacted with those people for those outcomes. But yeah, it is scary if you think about the ability of AI to clone voices or images or the rest of it. It kind of puts the Nigerian prince scams on steroids, right? So yeah, we definitely need to be mindful of that in how we implement these technologies moving forward.
Oh, that would be more, that's already happening. 2023, I think, kind of painted that picture in terms of people taking AI companies to court with regards to intellectual property because of how maybe their systems are trained. But I think we're just going to be hearing more and more about it. But obviously, those court cases, I think, will set a precedent. But the more discussions we have like this, it opens that door to understanding what the impacts are and how to navigate it.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's kind of different countries have different regulatory regimes, right? And
Very true.
so, court cases in one country may not be as applicable in others in terms of ensuring best practices. So I think there definitely has to be some responsibility on the part of technology vendors to make sure that that's done properly, as well as industry working together with government to get some common sense regulations. Because
I
yeah,
think
I think
EU,
this process is just happening right in real
of
time.
course, I think EU is really taking the lead with that, from what I understand recently.
Yeah, and the EU traditionally has done that. So GDPR is something that we've dealt with for a long time, and California basically has their own California Consumer Privacy Act as well, which basically leaned pretty heavily on what had been done with GDPR in the EU, General Data Protection Regulations. So I think the EU again is kind of taking the lead, and hopefully there'll be kind of a clear uh, regular path so companies kind of know best practices to operate.
And outside of AI, what do you think is the next big trend in terms of digital communications?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard one because I think AI is so transformative that there's so many different aspects of AI that will transform digital communications, if that makes sense, right? So, when we talk about AI, there's different aspects of AI, right? There's AI that you can use for knowledge assistance summarization using things like a RAG, which is, kind of an engine, retrieval augmented generation, to kind of gather information from a trained database. But you also got things like digital workers and agents that you can start to ask them to do stuff for you, and then that just because of the fact that we now have a natural language interface as a command line. And so what does that mean, right? You now have a box which you can type something into, and the computer on the other end can understand what you asked it to do, like in the world of Star Trek, and it will do it for you. And that can now be done by voice or via text. And so I think, how does that impact upon, communications? It basically becomes pretty ubiquitous that you're going to ask your AI to do stuff for you, and it will go out and do it, or answer questions for you, or help make things more efficient. So I think, communications tying in with AI agents will unlock a lot of productivity. And I see that as kind of just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the changes we're going to be seeing over the next, 10, 20 years.
That's a great response. It really makes you think, to be honest. Nate, is there anything else that you maybe wanted to touch on that we didn't get an opportunity to chat about? Maybe you think that our viewers should be, our listeners.
Yeah, listeners. There you go.
Should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty exciting time right now, because right now you have like traditional enterprise software and like the internet as it exists today, and then in parallel you have this AI revolution going on there. And so basically all these things are going to mash up at some point. And so the way that you interact with, software and services, are all going to change. Hopefully the call centers will get a lot better if the AI can gather the right information, so you're not kept on hold for 30 minutes, hours at a time. And hopefully, you'll be able to get better outcome with your healthcare if you can provide better information analysis for professionals and from a lot of different areas. So I think there's a lot of promise around creating better efficiency. I think obviously with those changes, that will also have some differences on unemployment. Like I think AI is a lot better at doing white collar jobs than anyone thought it would be in terms of providing content writing or analysis or other areas. So I think we'll need to shape our society to kind of take advantage of this technology while figuring out how people can stay gainfully employed and continue to thrive, right?
Nate, thanks again for joining us on this episode of Brains Byte Back. We really appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's episode. If you've benefited from what you've learned today, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes. You can also find all our past and future episodes on YouTube and Spotify under Brains Byte Back. And if you'd like to connect with us directly, you can always reach out to us by email at info@sociable.co. Remember, your feedback helps us grow. We welcome it. We appreciate you joining us. Until next time.